to the last lecture, lecture number 14. In this lecture, I will shed some light on the great contributions of Muslims to the Western or to the West in general, or let me say to the whole world. What Muslims contributed to the whole world. Let me share with you some points before I start. I remind you about the objectives of this course. One of the objectives of this course is it highlights the contributions of Arabic and Islamic culture and civilization to the Western thought and culture in general. It provides students with tools and skills for cross-cultural communication and dialogue with others. And this is what I shared with you in the last 3 lectures. And let me conclude this last lecture with this part, this objective. The contribution of Arabic and Islamic culture to the Western thought and culture in general and the whole world at large. Okay, let me go to this part. Do you remember we talked before when we talked about the 7 factors? There are 7 factors I talked about. Do you remember them? Foundations and factors influencing the English thought and culture. We talked about invasions, religions. Do you remember them? Anyhow, let me go to this part I have discussed earlier, but I will focus more on it in this lecture. We talked about the influence of Islam and Muslims on ETC, English thought and culture, and Europe in general. Spain and Muslims from 711 to 1492, for around 800 years. Muslims spent about 800 years in Spain. After opening Spain, Al-Andalus or Andalusia, Muslims, mashallah, ruled Spain for 800 years. What a great time. And this is, as I also mentioned, it became the center, the torch, the light for knowledge, science for all Europe. Europe in that time was living in what is called the Dark Ages. But for us Muslims, those ages were the golden ages, the ages of light, the ages of science, the ages of inventions. Let me go to some great Muslim scholars and scientists, to name some of them. Ibn Sina. Look how the West, or in Europe, instead of saying Ibn Sina, they transformed it, or they changed the name to Avicenna. So when you read about pharmacy, Avicenna, you find a logo about medicine or pharmacy, they refer to this, name. And some of us don't know, or might, ignore the fact that they are talking about Ibn Sina, a Muslim scholar. He was great in medicine, in philosophy, in astrology, in you name it. So let me go to another great scholar, Ibn Khaldun, Ibn Battuta, Ibn Rushd, Ibn al-Nafis, Ibn al-Haytham, Ibn al-Jazari, And we have Abbas ibn Farnas, the first man who tried to fly with wings, but he did not put a tail, he fell down. But people learned. The Americans, the Europeans, those who invented airplanes learned from Abbas ibn Farnas. So we are sharing now this great civilization of Muslims. Let me go to great inventions by Muslim scholars and scientists. They were great in math. It's enough just to mention the zero. Muslims invented the zero, صفر. Who invented that? صفر, Muslims. Just try to imagine, try to feel the greatness of this invention, the zero. You know, computers, math, IT, jets, air jets, planes, you name it, they use the number zero. So this is the invention created or made by who? We Muslims, we are the ones who invented the zero. We have math, علم الرياضيات, we have the medicine, الطب, الجبرة. They have even the same الجبر, علم الجبر. They call it الجبرة. Physics, in chemistry, الكيمياء became chemistry. They are using similar word like alcohol, astronomy, stars, the movement of the moon, the sun, the stars, the dates, the timing. This is part of what Muslims contributed to the whole world. There are many, many great, tremendous, significant, and important aspects that we can talk for many hours about these things. So let me go to another aspect. But before that, please, if you are interested in this aspect, I recommend you watch this wonderful YouTube clip about the contributions of Muslims to the West. This is the link, so you can use it. I don't have enough time. I can do it now, but actually I have shortage of time. But you can copy this link, put it in any search engine, look at this beautiful YouTube. This YouTube is created or made by some people in Britain. It's made in Britain by non-Muslims. It speaks in a very novel, in a very creative way about, it is like a story. A teacher took her students to a museum and told them, okay, go search about what's called Dark Ages, but actually it was the Golden Ages for Muslims. I stop here. I will not tell you the whole story. I would like to go and check this beautiful story made by a British organization. We can also talk about the influence of Islam on Muslims in Spain. They spent 800 years in Andalus. Granada, Cordoba, Qarnata, Ishbiliya, Espania, Espanyol, Al-Andalus. These were, mashallah, done by Muslims. This is the Islamic civilization. If you go to Spain, you feel sometimes the pain that this is the Islamic civilization that we did not keep, we did not preserve, We lost this great civilization because of division and disunity. Now let me go quickly, before I conclude this lecture, let me share with you this final review. So this course talked about the English thought and culture. We talked about English, the definitions, English, thought and culture. I will go just quickly. So we talked about definitions. So preparing for the final exams, I would like you to know the definitions. I tell you this from now. Focus on the definitions. Thought, what is thought? Culture, what is culture? Then we talked about the factors, the foundations and factors influencing the English thought and culture. We talked about invasions, number one, invasions, number two, Roman and Greek effects, religions, theories, movements and revolutions. Number five, media technology and technology, geography and location, contributions of other nations and cultures, like the Islamic and Arabic contributions. Then we talked about the invasions, or the Germanic invasions. Look at the Germanic invasions when they invaded Britain. We talked about the Old English time, or the dates are important too, by the way. The dates are important. You'll be asked about dates. Pay attention to them. So my final exam basically is based on these presentations. Try to learn them well. Prepare well. We talked about the Middle English. The lower classes spoke English. The upper classes spoke what? Spoke French. Then again, study this well. Modern English, late modern English, varieties of English. So we can talk about some varieties of English. What are they? What are the varieties? Then we went to this chronology. I asked you to focus on the first part, then go to this part too. Ignore this part. So this is not, or this will not be in the final exam, just to make it easy for you. But I would like you to focus on the last part. Then we focused on speaking about Greek and Roman effects, how they affected the English and European thought and culture, ancient Greek philosophy. We shed some information about it. We spoke about great Greek philosophers. You remember some of them? Well, who are they? I might ask you about it. We have Socrates, Plato, Aristotle. Then we talked about the effects of Greek in terms of democracy, the law, stated or ruled or taught by the Romans. So please go over it quickly. I don't have enough time to read the whole material. We spoke about the Roman Empire, the impact of Roman Empire on the West and on the English thought and culture in general. Then we talked about Christianity, how the Roman Empire affected the whole world. They affected the whole world by implementing or adopting Christianity. It became the state religion of the Roman Empire. Then we talked about Constantine, who converted his religion to Christianity. His conversion was so important in the history of Christianity. The Council of Nicaea is another important turning point in Christianity. For example, in 325 AD, the Roman emperor dictated by his authority, by his influence, what to be accepted in Christianity and what not to be accepted. They reached the concept of Trinity, so it was taught, it was dictated by the influence, by the power of the emperor who supported this dogma, this teaching, God the Father, God the Son, and God the Holy Spirit. So it was a political insertion, a political influence. Then we talked about part 3, religions. We talked about Christianity, Judaism, and other religions like paganism, atheism, Hinduism, Buddhism, Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. And we discussed the impact, the influence of these cultures, of these religions on the thought and the cultures of people. Okay. Later, I talked about part 4, factor number 4, theories, movements, and revolutions. For example, Darwin's theory of evolution. This helped changing people to believe in atheism, or the liberal thought started in this age. The French Revolution. Then we have the other great turning point revolutions, theories, and movements. Please go over them quickly, I don't have enough time. Part 5, media and technology, printing and publications, research, satellites, Hollywood, the internet, telecommunication, advanced technology and industry. All these things spread. They helped spreading the English thought, American thought, and culture. Part 6, geography and location. I discussed this with you. I told you that, look at this, Europe is in the heart of the whole world. So this big and important, this significant location helped spreading the English thought, the European thought and culture throughout all directions. You have different directions. You go to, for example, North America, South America, Africa, Asia, Middle East. Europe itself is nearby. The countries are close to each other. Italy, Germany, you name it, France, Holland. They are so close to each other. So they affected each other. Then I talked about effective dialogue and communication skills. I shared with you my experience for about 25 years having dialogue and communication with many people in America, in Europe, in the West in general, in New Zealand, in Australia, in Japan, in other places. So I shared with you some creative methods and approaches on presenting our civilization, the Islamic civilization and culture, to others nicely and wisely. Ultimately, you know, at the beginning of this lecture, I talked about the contributions of Arabic and Islamic culture and civilization to the West thought and culture in general. I share with you, some information about Muslims in Spain. Muslims opened Spain and ruled it for about 800 years. We Muslims, we have great scholars who contributed greatly to medicine, to math, to algebra, to physics, to chemistry, to astrology, to the study of the moon, the sun, the stars. We Muslims had and have actually a great civilization. We made a difference. We made a great difference in the world. Hoping that you enjoyed this course, the American or the European, or more specifically, I'm talking about the English thought and culture. But all in all, indeed, I spoke about the English, the American, and European or Western culture in general, the contributions of Muslim to them, and I hope that this will help you not only to have information in this course and to get, inshallah, a good grade in this course, but also to have good skills on how to communicate with the West or the East nicely and wisely. At the end, I would like to thank you, wishing you, inshallah, all success. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.